What is up, guys? My name is Sebastian with doinksports.com, and today is a very special day because NBA is finally back. It's been a long summer without NBA, but here at Doink HQ, we've been getting ready for weeks for the start of the season, and it's finally here. So today, I just wanted to make a short video on running through some of the player prop tools that we have for NBA on Doink, how they work, the different tools and features, and let's dive right in. So when you first come to a player props page, you're going to see the projected starting lineup for the away team and the home team, and you're going to see breakdowns for each player. And you can see here that we have all the positions for both teams. Now, for each player, you're going to see two major groups of data. So on the left side, this is what we like to call our offensive breakdowns, and this is just what has this player done in the past. You're going to see who they played, whether they won or lost, and then every stat that they recorded during that game. Now, on the other side, this is what we like to call our defensive breakdowns. This is what has the opposing defense allowed from players in the same position in the past. So it can be kind of tricky, but the combination of a player's historical trends plus the opposing defense's historical trends in terms of what they've allowed from players in the same position in the past, the combination of those two data sets can be really, really powerful and help you find really interesting spots for the game tonight. Anyways, let's dive into each breakdown because there's a couple different parts. So going from top to bottom, we have the splits and filters, the game log table, and then we have averages, hit rate, and lines. So starting up with the splits and filter, on the top left here, we have our number of games selector. So this is just how many games you want to look at any given time when you're doing your research. Some people only like to look at the last 5 games to see how a player has been trending recently. Some people like to look at the entire last season, for example. It really depends on you and your research style, but today we're just going to keep it to the last 10. Then we have some basic splits. We have the head-to-head, and we have the home and away. And the cool thing is you can kind of mix and match these as you please. Below that, we have our filters, and I'm going to start with my favorite filter, which is the without players filter. So I don't need to tell you how important injuries are to basketball and the way that a game can play out, and especially how one player being out can affect a different player who is still playing. There's only 5 players on a court for a team at a given time, and one of those players being swapped out for another can really change how both the team and the individual players play. And so if someone's questionable for tonight or already injured, then it's really important to check the historical data when that player has been out in the past. And so you can see that I applied the filter and the data changed, and it can really expose some good spots or some really bad spots. And so it's really important to check if you're making your bets. Then we have the exact opposite. We have the with players filter. And so this is show me games when another player has been playing. And so sometimes what I like to do is someone's questionable for tonight, I check the data with and without them and see if there's a major difference. If there is, then I kind of take note of that and write it down for later. Anyways, moving along with the filters, we have the filter by minutes. And so this can be really helpful to see or to get rid of some outliers in the data. Sometimes players just have an off night, or they're kind of injured, or they just want to take it easy, so they only play a couple of minutes. And this can kind of affect the averages, the hit rates in an annoying way. So you can filter them out based on the minutes that they played in a given game. Anyways, moving along, we have the days rest filter. Now, I love this filter because rest is a super important factor in basketball. It's a very fast-paced season. Sometimes teams have games back-to-back nights. Sometimes they go 3 or 4 days without playing a game, and those extra days can really make an impact on how rested a player is. Maybe they're recovering from injuries, and so it can be a really big factor. So if one team's coming off of a back-to-back game and another team is coming off of 3 or 4 days of rest, it can be really cool to see the trends for a team or a player when they've had rest or no rest and things like that. Anyways, moving along, for the last 2 filters we have, you can filter by field goal attempts and 3-point attempts. So if you're making a points or a 3-pointers bet, filtering by the number of attempts that they've made at those things can be really, really important to check as well. The one thing I do want to mention before we move along is that when you apply a split or a filter to one team, or one player rather, they get applied to every player on that team. So I just applied the away filter for the Knicks, and you can see that every player on the Knicks has the away filter applied already. And this is just a really fast way to do your research. I don't have to go player by player, stat by stat. I can just decide what's important for me, and I can just scan the whole team to look for trends that stand out. And it's really fast and speedy that way once you get used to it. Anyways, below the splits and filters, we have the game logs table. This is pretty self-explanatory. It's just the past game logs for this player, given the filters and the splits that you've applied above. The one thing that I want to make note of is this columns button here. So we have some default columns selected, but you can turn off and on different columns based on just what you want to research. So we have a bunch of different stats here. You can look at turnovers, 2-pointers, points in the paint, fouls, everything, whatever you want, really. And it changes the data that's in the table here. And it can just really help you in your research if you like to look at really interesting numbers or really interesting stats that might expose trends in certain ways. Anyways, below the game logs table, we have the averages table, and this is self-explanatory. This is just the average of everything that's above it, given the number of games you have selected. Below the averages, we have the hit rate, and the hit rate really depends on the line, so I'm going to talk about the lines first. The lines, for each bet, you have the handicap, like the consensus handicap across all the books. Then you have the best over odds, and then the best under odds. And so here, Jalen Brunson, for example, his points handicap is 27.5. The best over odds are plus 100 on FanDuel, and the best under odds are also plus 100 on Bovada. Now, you don't really see that too often. That's a zero vig, zero hold market. But anyways, given the handicap of 27.5, everything above it is kind of depending on that. So the hit rate, 7 out of 10, means that Jalen Brunson has gone over 25.5 points 7 out of the last 10 games. And then the averages table and the game logs table, you can see that the cells are color-coded there. Those are color-coded based on the handicap as well. So if they're green, that means that they went over the handicap in that game. And if they're red, that means he went under the handicap in that game. The more green, the more over, the more red, the more under. It's pretty self-explanatory. And once you get used to it, it becomes really quick and easy just to spot trends. You kind of just look for green or red after you've applied the filters that you want. Anyways, the last thing I'll mention here is if you click on a line table cell, then it draws out this really cool section. This is our line tools section. And so we have the alt line slider here. As you move the alt line, it changes the handicap and thus changes the color coding of the table and the hit rates. And so you can kind of slide the alt line slider here and look for hit rates and averages that you're comfortable with when you're choosing some alt lines. Then we have the VIG. This is the juice. I'll make a different video about that, but it can be a really interesting number to look at. You generally want to bet into lower VIG markets. But anyways, below that, we have what all the different books are offering for this market and handicap. We have the market average, the market best, and then the implied probability given the best odds offered at different books. And then below that, we have our lines graph. And so you can see the historical movements of the odds over time. You can see that it just updated there. So we snapshot these lines just about every minute, but often a lot less. And you can see how the over odds have changed for each book, how the under odds, and how the handicap itself has changed on the different books. So it's got a complete view of the betting market. And I just love this because you can find trends that really interested you with this data down here, up here. And then once you've found a bet that you really like from the stats, you can dive into the lines, make sure you're getting a good price, look for low hold and even arbitrage opportunities sometimes. You can see how the lines are, making sure you're not getting lines after a big movement or anything like that. It's really got everything you need. And anyways, guys, that's it. That is an intro to our player prop tools on Doink for NBA. It's worth mentioning that the season just started, so as the season goes on, we are going to continuously add more tools and features based on you guys and how the season plays out. Anyways, if you have any questions or comments, drop them in the comments below or join our Discord server. That's also in the section down below. And thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you next time.